Brokenness. It can mean a lot of things. It may imply messiness and imperfection. It may mean heartbreak. It may mean physical weakness. For some, it's a reason to demand pity. For others, it's a motivation to stay true to themselves in the flawed humanity. For others, it's a cool word, a trend. There's a lot we could talk about it in regards to the meaning of brokenness. But I want to talk specifically about brokenness before the Lord. Brokenness in His eyes is to be broken, crushed, and torn in spirit over sin. In 2 Samuel chapter 12 and Psalms 51, we see the perfect example of the beauty of brokenness. I don't know how exactly what David's initial response was to Nathan's confrontation of his sin. All I do know is that he came to a point of confession and acceptance of his wrongdoing. After Nathan's lengthy speech, David's only recorded response in this passage is found in a simple phrase, "I have sinned against the Lord." David, a man after God's own heart. David, a warrior with his band of mighty men. David, the great king to ever reign over Israel. And here we find him, his larger-than-life status diminished, his great attributes out of the limelight, his sin highlighted. David, the man we rightfully respect and look to as an example in our own Christian life, is a sinner. David, in this moment, he is reduced to a liar, an adulterer, and a murderer. When God said, "The way of a transgressor is hard," no one was excluded from that principle, not even David, one of the greatest men to ever live. And in Psalms 51, we get a peek in him. We see a man truly broken by his transgressions. And what does the Lord desires? David knew something we dearly need to understand. God does not want we sinners to pick ourselves up by our bootstraps and try harder. He does not want us to feed our pride by making things right, nor does He simply want sadness or sorrow over the consequences and pain our sin brings to us. He wants spiritual brokenness, the kind of brokenness He can use. He wants godly sorrow that leads to repentance. A man I respect and struggled deeply with a sinful lifestyle for some time. Upon giving his testimony, he said, "The most wonderful thing about sin is that it makes you so desperate that all you want to is know God." Yes, deeper sin makes us desperate. And out of that desperation, out of that grief and the hurt of a fractured heart over sin, God longs to produce humility in us. It is the humility that allows us to recognize, as David did, who God is and who we were in comparison with Him. It is humility that sets us up to come to grips with our sins. The reason brokenness is beautiful is because of how God can use it in our lives. It is something that can draw us near to Him. Brokenness can make room for a contrite heart, and repentance to bring us back into fellowship with Him when we have miserably failed. It's not lovely in itself. It is not the end of journey. It is not a cute hashtag to put on a picture of a dirty house. It's not a word to use when you want to feel authentic. Standing alone, it is messy and sad. No, beauty in spiritual brokenness is found in where it brings us. True brokenness is a tool by which God brings His wandering sheep back into His loving arms. Unless the seed is broken, it cannot grow and bear fruit. So, dear Lord, please break me.